right, everybody, welcome back. Austin Turner, your host here at the Unheard Digital Summit. My guest today needs no introduction. Super excited about this conversation because it provides a really unique perspective to the overall conversation on how COVID-19 is impacting youth, sports, and education in general. The one and only Mr. Jim Madrid. Welcome to the conversation, sir.
Thanks, Austin. What a great job you're doing. This is so important and so necessary. So way to go.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. We'll take a solidarity, all of us coming together in order to get youth sports and education back reopened. Today's chat is a little personal and special to me. The mental development, the emotional development that comes along with the physical and athletic development. I'm a big person on the emotional and the mental side of things. So before I segue or talk too much about what you do, let's talk a little bit about who you are, where you're located, and what you provide to the youth sports market.
All right. So I have been practicing, I guess, positive psychology since I was 15 years old, Austin. It's been a few years. That's when I was kind of introduced to it. But back then it was called more new age thinking. The soft skill, training and mentality was not really, you don't need that. You just need hard work. You need hard work. That's all. That's what's going to get you. And I was fortunate that high school that I went to, the coach started us kind of thinking this way. Since then, what's kind of started out as a personal interest has become a professional, passion of mine. And I have immersed myself into the way high performance people think, and not in the psychology, which over the last 60 years has been about what's wrong with people and then how do we fix them, disorders and things like that. So when you look at what we do, what I was really interested in was high performance people. You look at professional athletes, you look at leaders of businesses that are, I grew up watching the Lee Iacocca's and those kind of people. And that always intrigued me. At 15 years of age also, I went to work, born and raised in Seattle. I went to work for Nordstrom. My mother went to work there in 1952. And I started stocking shoes, and I started selling shoes at 16. At 18 or 19, I became a department manager for ladies' shoes. And I was taken under the wing of Jim and Bruce Nordstrom. Jim has since passed away, but they took me under their wings. And if you want to talk about, Mr. Lou Tice, who was my high school coach and teacher, who then became a mentor and my boss, and he started a company called the Pacific Institute. He became, an expert in human behavior. And then I've got corporate culture and how to treat people. And so it's kind of like serendipitous of how and what I do today. So about 5 years ago, through all my corporate training that I would do, my company and I, we inevitably would get asked, do we do this for kids? Well, I've raised 5 children and I'm always involved in sports. And, when you ask the question, what percentage of the game is mental? Well, you always get the response 50, 60, 80, 90, 100% is mental. And then we looked at what coaches do in the training sessions. It's what? It's technical, it's tactical, and it's physical. Well, where's the mental part? If you agree that that's 50% and up, then it's just as important as the physical. It's just as important as the tactical. Problem has been is there's no real practical resource for coaches to access to be able to kind of start a different language, just like you do in technical, tactical, physical. So that's what I started back about 4 or 5 years ago, and put together advanced sports technology. Advance, not advanced. We are advancing the sports and kind of bring it into a practical way. So our job is to kind of translate the clinical into the practical and then deliver it to coaches and players. And we are from 13 on up through the pros. And we've done pretty big impact and changing and improving the culture of youth sports. So long story short, that's me. That's advanced sports technology.
Yeah, and that's an incredible story. Obviously, taking it back to the very beginning, having the opportunity to get that, strong entry point into corporate America, and then translating those skills, decades of skills and experiences into what AST is today. I'm so thankful to know you and to have you in the network. And I wanted to give you the floor to be able to talk about the beginnings and then what has brought you up to today with working with some of the biggest teams. You mentioned Seattle Sounders, Los Angeles Chargers, many teams in the Presidio and Cal South markets. You're working with them and you're providing this immense impact. So once again, very grateful for the work you do, specifically for that mental and emotional aspect of this. Let's talk a little bit about how that translates from corporate America into youth sports. Let's talk about the focuses on, let's go player first, because I know you provide value to coaches, officials, administrators. I mean, there's a number of different value points that you provide to this total sports market. But let's talk about the player development first. Talk to me about what that looks like and what AST's focus is from that angle.
Well, we have a core curriculum that's based on evidence-based science, especially in the area of positive psychology. What is positive psychology? Positive psychology is about happy people. And if you're happy, they're more productive. And that's either corporate or on the soccer field or basketball court or volleyball court, or no matter what sport, no matter what the game is. And so if you do that, Georgetown University about 6 years ago did a study on why kids play sports and why they quit sports, and look at that transitional age around that 13, 14 years of age. It seems that we just kind of drop off. The players kind of drop off. Why? Well, it came down to something real simple. It's not fun anymore. And that's why they drop off. And so over the years, you look at youth sports. When we started, back in 2012, youth sports in America was a $7 billion a year industry. Today, it's a $19 billion a year industry, and it looks at growing at by 2022, over $40 billion a year industry. And what's driving this? And I had to look at what's driving it first before I could get to what we could, the concepts that we could teach to our student athletes. And it's what's driving it is the cost of college today. And you think about that. Now, what does that do with a player? Well, because mom and dad can't afford the cost of colleges. So mom and dad are driving that kid, their child, to excel in sports so that they have the possibility and the opportunity to get some sort of scholarship. And we're comparing ourselves to all these people. Well, that whole landscape is changing as we go through this pandemic and what's happening to our colleges. And Austin, you know that more than anybody, what's happening there. So now let's go back to parents driving and pressuring kids. It's a sad state of affairs right now. And so what we want to be able to do, what my team and I and our advisors on the professional side, the science side, we have clinical psychologists in the area of cognitive behavioral therapy, and we've got neuroscientists, how your mind is connected to performance, that advise us. This isn't me that's creating this stuff. It's myself and my team translating the science so that we can give them that. It's not motivational. In Austin, we've had conversations before where, I don't want to be called, and neither do any of my coaches want to be called motivational speakers. And nothing wrong with motivational speakers. They're great. But to me, they're a sugar rush. Okay, where's the system? Where's the process? Where's the ongoing? What we want to be able to teach kids is the self-discipline, is to get them through. Now, a few years ago, I wrote a book called Get Over It and Get On With It. And today, we're selling more books today than I could even imagine based on what's going on with our lives today. But how do we teach that to our kids? In the game of any sport, let's take soccer. You're running 45 minutes and there's no timeouts. There's none of that. And, if I'm dribbling the ball up the side of the field and all of a sudden one of their defenders comes in from behind and tackles me and takes the ball away, I don't sit there and cry about it. Well, some soccer players do, but I have the resiliency factor of athletes. And if they can just carry that on to life, that's what we want to be able to teach them, is that we get over it real fast. We go through those emotions that Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talked about, the emotions of grief, the anger, the denial, the bargaining, and depression. And what she talked about is the fifth one to get to, and that's acceptance. Athletes seem to get through those emotions, those 4 emotions, real fast. If not, they sit there and pout and cry on the field. And what's that getting them? The game continues to go on. The referee doesn't blow the whistle and say, hey, timeout, Turner's got to get over this. He's in the anger stage right now. Let's just are you okay, Austin? No, I can't believe this has happened to me. And oh, poor me. We don't have time for that. And so the game continues to go on. That's life. And if we can teach these through the window of sports, we can teach these kids about resiliency, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-efficacy. If we can give them those sense of, and the hard work, I think we've done at AST, we've done our job. And if we can make that positive impact on the culture of youth sports, providing these kids, these students with the mental tools, the life tools and skills that will help them get through life and deal with the basic challenges of life, then we've done our job. And today, more than ever, we believe that we are it's very necessary for these kids to be learning some of these skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. You mentioned a couple things there that really stood out. Data and facts, right? Before you just created a program, you went and you learned, you figured out where there were areas of improvement and where focus needed to be done, and you went in and created a system or a process that people now can follow to achieve those results. A lot of key things there. You're not going to be able to overcome these obstacles or pain points on your own in most cases. You have to be able to kind of be force realized in some cases that they're there, and then you need the tools to be able to overcome them. And that's where AST fits in. And it has a tremendous online program. I won't share too much about that. We'll get a little bit into that conversation a little bit further. However, now is so very important to have those tools at your disposal, being the quarantine situation, state guidelines. So let's talk a little bit about today's relevancy and where AST fits in. Let's talk about where we're located here in California specifically, and the stay-at-home or state mandates that aren't allowing participation in sports. I know you're in the Orange County market yourself, and there is obviously quite the battle on our hands trying to get youth soccer in particular reopened. What is the opportunity cost, let's say, for our youth if they are to remain stagnant, right? Continue this cycle of sitting at home, not having the accessibility to youth sports, the ability to get out in the sunlight, to be able to get out and be around, their teammates and their coaches. At the end of it, really being out of their routine. Talk to me about a little bit about what that looks like from a mental standpoint if kids are still forced out of that routine.
So, I revert back to our advisors, and the cognitive psychologists and so on. And what they're telling us is the impact psychologically on these kids. First off, think about this. We're born into a tribal mentality. We're born into a family, okay? And if you go back through the ages, Neanderthal, we'll look at, we all we did was hunt for food, right? But when we saw a grizzly bear staring at us, what did we have? We had the fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? So we fought it, and then that was the fight. The flight was, I'm getting the hell out of here, right? Or freeze. And what our kids are in the freeze mode right now. They are frozen in place. Mom, dads, they listen to you. They hear your frustrations. They hear your political views. They hear your view about the pandemic. I have one, it was a 16-year-old kid on a Zoom call asked, the question was, do you think this is the end of the world? Now, how did they come to that realization that this is the end of the world? I wanted to cry. To have that happening and the effect on these kids, they say, well, the scar tissue is going to be long lasting. We need to be with each other. You cannot, and this is my opinion and opinion of many professionals, is that the online learning thing is in education, it owns solely, it's got to be blended. I think there is opportunity for online, yes, because we're doing it too. But the being in a group dynamic, being part of that team. In organizations, studies and research has told us the number one thing that drives people at work, that inspires people at work, is being part of something bigger than themselves. That's why we do play sports. My daughter graduated from Fordham University in their theater arts program. And if you look up the benefits of sports, of a child playing sports, they're very similar to theater. They're very similar to other clubs in high schools and so on. It's being part of the team. It's doing something that is greater than, we want that, we want to have autonomy. We want to be left alone so we can create things. We want purpose in our life. We want to do it for a purpose. And we want to master stuff. I mean, I look at people that, right now are taking different languages, that are in their 50s, 60s, that are taking language courses. They're learning to play the piano. You're not getting paid to play the piano, but they want to master something. And that's what kids thrive on. That's what you did. That's what I did. And we want to get good at something. It's interesting because part of our concepts that we talk about is the awareness device in our head, in our brain. And it zeroes in on things that have importance to us. So just think about this, Austin. When you bought your car, the last car you bought, salesman probably tells you, this is the only one in San Diego County. There's nobody else has one. All of a sudden you're driving around, there's one, there's another one. And, I'm from Washington, born and raised in Seattle. I've been living in Southern California since 1980. And, driving up I-5, I can point out a Washington State, license plate, 5 cars up, pass it and go, did you see that? Seattle Sounders. I can see a Seattle Sounders sticker, 10 cars up. You wouldn't even notice because it has no importance to you. So what we try and teach the kids today, and part of our curriculum, is what's important to you? What's the purpose behind this? What's the purpose? I know what's his name came out with your why, but that's so trendy. I'm sorry. It's just trendy. It's like we are human beings, we are purpose maximizers. We're not why maximizers. We're purpose maximizers. We do everything on purpose. What you have provided with this with your two-footed solutions, Austin, it's got a purpose behind it. Mm-hmm. So what we teach them is you got to have that long-term vision. But what's the purpose behind that vision? And if more parents, coaches, teachers can help people understand purpose first, then the vision. Purpose drives vision. Vision drives performance. It isn't the other way around. It's that, so what's the purpose behind it? Okay, if you achieve that vision, and we sit here now and at the end of the year, you tell me this is what I accomplished. There's purpose, right? This is what I accomplished. So what's, that's your long-term vision. So what if you achieved it? Who cares if you achieved it? And what difference would it make if you did achieve? If more parents and coaches would ask that about their school year, but we hear them coaching down and not coaching up. And so, coaching it's coaching up. Parenting, it's coaching up. It's mentors. We're all mentors. You are, I am, to my kids, to my staff, to so on. It's that I see more in them than they see in themselves. That's a mentor. And our job is to help them realize that God-given potential. And so, to bring that out is understand what their purpose is for doing this. What's the purpose for doing that? What's the purpose? You hear kids, and you've said it and I've said it. What the heck does biology, dissecting a pig have to do with what I want to do in the future? Right? Why? Geometry. Really? Trig? Are you kidding me? I'll never use trig. I know. But what's the purpose behind that? But if you get a good grade, what's the grade? Now, you can't tell a D student kid that he's going to be an all A student. But man, if I can get him to a D plus or to a C minus, and then from a C minus to a C plus, and then I can help grow their efficacy. But what I hear him say are things like, that's Austin's worst class. And Austin's standing over there in the corner listening, or in the other room, and he can hear me telling that. That's a third-party affirmation. I'm sitting there telling him, oh, that's Austin. He's never been good in math. Right, Austin? And yep, that's me. Instead of asking, what's one class? So think about this, Austin. When you were in high school, what was one class what was your worst class in high school? What was your worst subject in high school?
Let's go with English.
Okay, English. Okay. So look at now, walking into an English class, if you just mentally going back into high school and thinking, in a flash moment, you're thinking about walking into that. By the way, it was mine too. But walking into that class, dude, there was some sort of anxiety walking into that class. When we had the homework, there was anxiety as we approached doing the homework. That was our mindset. Now, let me ask you this question differently. When you were in high school, Austin, what's one class that you need to spend more time and energy in? English. Now look where your mindset went into. Now look at the mindset. But see, we do that. It's almost like I take off and I'm going to a meeting. And my wife says to me, don't forget to pick up the cleaning on the way home. Get it? Right. So what does she tell me to do? Because, you always forget things. Yep, that's me. I'm putting that in here. Instead of saying what? Coaching up. Remember to pick up the cleaning, because that's just like you, to pick up the cleaning. Remember to pick up your clothes. Remember to make your bed in the morning, because that's just like you. But we've gotten into a society that with this pessimistic, negative kind of thing, and especially now with social media, the negative self-talk that's out there. And lastly, I'll just say, I tested something out because there's a new study out called emotional, how it's called, emotional contagion, emotional digital contagion. So you and I can have this wonderful conversation. And then I pick up this and I get on social media and I see somebody writing something. I go, are you freaking nuts? And I want to just light them up, right? And my emotions just got hacked by some stoop on this, right? So, but we've got these kids playing, and we're driving them from social distancing and all this. We're driving them right to this. We need to be out on the fields. We need to be out on the courts. We need to be in the classroom. That's where these kids need to be. And everything, yes, I understand that it's out there and everything else, but at the end of the day, we've got to protect these kids. And it's just getting completely out of control.
Absolutely. And I like how you said that so palatably, right? You made it relevant. You put it in terms that people can understand. I mean, it's very high level thoughts. AST has got facts, data that you created this system around in order to optimize the mental performance of your athletes at all levels. So there's a overarching high level understanding of the system itself. However, when you focus it or break it down, it's really, how do you get between 2 points? It's a straight line. However, if you only focus on the straight line and you don't focus on how you got to that end point or the critical path to success, if you will, I come from the entrepreneurial world, so I use that on a daily basis. But everybody's definition of success is different. However, how they get there, it takes incremental changes. It takes that daily work, and it does take that reshaping of the conversation or pre-frame of the conversation being changed. I work with entrepreneurs, I work with coaches, I work with businesses across the country to launch effective communication, right? I'm big on effective communication, and every client that I work with, when we get done, I have them say, I'm an effective communicator, because most people's effective communication goes out the window in business and in life due to what you just picked up, that cell phone. If you realize that there is more to this world than what is on that screen, and if you actually put the time in order to improve yourself, there's more to life than just your intelligence, right? There's emotional intelligence, there's your physical development, everything goes hand in hand. However, people drop off on the emotional and the mental side of the equation.
Totally.
Yep. So let's talk a little full circle about this, right? Because I love your approach. I love the value that you provide. However, there's some really alarming statistics that I've learned from other interviewees that I want to bring to the conversation. First off, youth sports registration is down 40% due to COVID-19, right? Youth sports down 40%. That's not just, players being affected. That's parents, that's leagues, that's auxiliary businesses touching the youth sports arena. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like at a grandiose level, right? 40% down. Now kids are left to their vices. Parents are now susceptible to abuse. Kids are now open or susceptible to suicides. What do you see on your end? Have you seen any data statistics that are showing a increase in domestic violence or abuse or suicides or anything related to more time and more time freedom for youth athletes?
Well, first off, the National Hotline for Mental Health in the month of April 2020 saw a 1,000% increase in calls over last April. 1,000%. Alcohol sales are up. Child abuse is up. I think that child abuse in hospitals, child reporting is down, but visits to the hospital are up. And that's because coaches, teachers aren't seeing this and reporting it because they're not there physically. They're not seeing it. They're not seeing all that. So that's up. Drug overdose. I was with a gentleman the other day who has treatment centers. He's at capacity. He's absolutely at capacity. He's turning people away. There is a pandemic beyond the pandemic that's going on. Austin, I look at, what we're able to provide in helping people kind of open up their minds a little bit to think differently. And I think we have to think differently about youth sports. In the last couple of years, there's been all kinds of articles talking about pay to play. And, those with money can hire the coaches, can hire the one-on-one coaching. They can do all these, they can join these elite clubs. But then we have the underserved community that can't afford to pay the $2,200. And that fee, that market, that industry of youth sports going up and climbing up like it has, it's out of control. We had right here in Southern California, this was like 3 years ago, I was working with a private high school nearby, their baseball team, and they were getting ready to go to a summer league in South Carolina. So you're taking 25 players, you're flying across the country, you're there for a week. So you got hotel, food, you got tournament fees, you got the right jersey, the tournament jersey, you got all this happening, all this expenses, parents flying out, You're there all week. And they're located in San Juan Capistrano. And at the end of the tournament, in the final championship game, they played a team from San Clemente, the neighboring town in South Carolina. It's like, really? Why? Oh, because there's going to be a lot of college coaches there. I think that whole dynamic is changing now, because even what we see happening in colleges, right? And again, I go back to what I originally said. I can't afford college because the college fees are out of control. And so the only way we can afford to send you to a great college is by getting some sort of sports, scholarship. So that whole landscape is changing. So then you take a look at now, well, look, what about rec? To play AYSO at $75 or $100 a season. Okay, great. And the cities are providing fields. So I think that's going to have to change a little bit as far as I just heard that, and I didn't know this, hockey here in Orange County. I mean, first off, hockey in California is just kind of beyond me. But anyways, $10,000 fee to be on a hockey team. And the first match, the tournament they play is they go to Buffalo, New York. So you got to spend the money there. And the equipment is like $1,000. And if you break one of those sticks, that's another $400 or $500. So you go on and on and on. And, these companies are just raking in the dough on this. People in my field, I see that, to get certified as a mental coach, a certified mental coach, mental toughness coach, it's upwards around, $10,000. It's like, really? It's like, wow, it's totally out of control. So, look at cleats for soccer are $300 because I got to have those good ones. So those are $300. They barely last a season now, and Nikes and Adidas and all them, they know that. It's like, well, you don't have to shave anymore, but it's like, why can't they make a blade that I can sharpen at home instead I got to keep buying more blades, right? And so you start to look at all these things and go, how we're being just so taken advantage of. And I think the pay to play thing is such a big issue now, and we need to get away from that. And yes, we need to have some sort of fees. I get it. And there's fees for us because we're a for-profit company. But at the same time, I'm not looking to, our fees right now, we've reduced them because of what's going on in the industry right now. And they're nothing. But, I look at ours is about the cost of a set of cleats for a kid, and it's going to last them the rest of their life instead of just a season. So that's our purpose behind what we do is through the window of sports, we can give them and supply these kids with these mental skills that are going to last them all through. The pay value for me is every once in a while, my wife and I, like we just did this last Christmas, got a Christmas card from a player that's got his master's at Gonzaga. And he went through our program when he was 17 years old up in Seattle. Tough life. Mom's a crack addict, doesn't even see his mom anymore. But back then, she was stealing money from him to get crack. Dad's a real super nice guy, truck driver. But he said, the tools that I learned going through the 7 fundamentals of mental toughness back then have absolutely helped me get to where I am today and where I'm going tomorrow. And so that's pay value for us. And we want to make it affordable and a price point where, where it is affordable. And we also look at, where we can, well, I can't pay. Well, okay, don't pay. Go through it. We'll scholarship them. We just we're doing a pilot program for the Boys and Girls Club in Carson, where we just certified 5 of their staff, and now it's going into their high school. We just donated that to them. And it's a pilot program, and then the LA Alliance, Boys and Girls Club, LA Alliance, they have 138 clubs. They're looking at how we're rolling that out. We want to assess and measure everything we're doing. And we can do that. We can see the difference between coaches that use our program and on their team versus a coach that doesn't use our program and doesn't use it on their team. We can see the difference. both on and off the field. It's a huge difference. It's a huge impact. And by the way, we're not the only ones out there. Positive Coaching Alliance, they do a fabulous job too. They do a great job. We take it a little deeper than them, but they're an awesome program, great program, and that is truly affordable too. Ours is a little bit deeper and longer lasting, meaning sustainability as the resources that we want to continue to provide. I hope that answered your question in the long term.
Oh, that was actually perfect. And it does shine a very interesting light on both the pay to play, socioeconomic differences, and really the gap, right? A lot of people live within their own bubble. A lot of people live within their own, mindset of how this is affecting me. But if you take yourself out of your situation and you try to put yourself in a situation of people who have it less than you, don't have the same needs. I've got statistics that I'll plug in the show notes that talk about the reduction in youth sports registration based off of this socioeconomic classes. You're talking about people who make $25,000 to $40,000. How much sports registration has dropped since 2018? Yeah. It's staggering. And you take that type of number, those data points, those stats, and you say, how is the COVID-19 situation going to impact that? Well, if it's reducing 40% registrations now, that 40% registration from 2018 in that socioeconomic group is going to be impacted that much more. Now, the only way that these leagues, tournaments are going to survive is by increasing their fees even higher. I don't believe that they're going to be able to come to a situation where they're going to be able to drop their fees in order to stay afloat. So then you're already taking kerosene to the fire in the first place. So now it's become this even more issue moving forward as we come out of COVID-19, moving into 2021 and beyond. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like, what AST's value to coaches, officials, parents, and administrators, right? So we talked about the player side. We talked about, how it's impacting the mental side, how it's teaching lifelong lessons. I love the story with the Gonzaga student. I think that's very relevant. If you have any more of those use cases or case studies, I'll gladly share those in the show notes as well, because I think people need to hear that this is something tangible. These are real people with real results, with real information that they're now carrying with them for the rest of their lives. It isn't therapy. It isn't the quick fix. It is something that they're going to now be able to rely on the tools in their toolbox to make the choices.
So there's a high school that I work with, a private school, and I started off with just a soccer team, ended up with, and it was my son went to the high school, and the president of the school is a good friend of mine. And so he asked me to come in and work. And I started working with the soccer team. I did staff and faculty development for them too on that side. And then I just got embedded into their athletic department. And 2019 season, 5 teams that we worked with, all 5 teams won CIF championships. That was cool. But what I looked at was when these players, the effect that it had off the field of play. That's what I was more interested in, because that, was, it was incredible to watch, grades and so on and what was happening there. Even parents telling us, I had one parent say, she's making her bed every morning. What did you do? It's like that. Let me pause on that. I had another thought while you were saying that. The 40% reduction, because the cost, right? But I think the whole industry needs to take a look. So if we're not playing anymore out there in Silver Lakes, then Silver Lakes needs to cut their prices. Because guess what? I'm not going to go out there because I can't afford to pay your fees. So they're going to have to take a cut. So it's this whole trickle down thing. It's actually a trickle up that has to happen, so that everybody has to take a look at this and say, hey, look, we've been, making this kind of money, and now we have to, it's thinking differently. That's what this has done. People just, I get asked by corporate people to talk about change. And, I go, look, you change the way you think about things, and things you think about will change. But we need to take a different approach to everything. Think differently. And we need to completely, or, how many times you hear this is challenging times we're going through. No, it's not. the way I think, is that these are changing times. And that means we have to change. And if I don't change, these are challenging times. And people don't realize that. They get so stuck. Well, and now they play where the anxiety comes in, they play the what if. The what if I don't go back to work? What if we don't make it? What if we don't get to play? What if? I'm talking to some of our coaches and they're saying, what if we start to play? So let's get ready for that. And if we don't, like my father taught me many years ago, and I know he didn't coin the phrase, expect the best, but be prepared for the worst. And I think what a lot of people, especially pessimistic people, and studies show this, that pessimistic people are always thinking the what if, that's never going to happen, that can't happen to us, we'll never be able to, it's never going to be the same, you know, there's silver lining in this all over the place. We've reinvented ourselves. We've created different programs based on this. You know, we're working on different things based on what's going on. I've had time to sit back and write more. So there is silver linings. This is you know, we've got a blank canvas in which we can write what we want and paint what we want right now. Yeah, I haven't had to travel as much. I got to spend more time with my wife and my kids. This Zoom has created more of that. Yes, do I get out and I do have face-to-face meetings? Yes. Doing the social distancing? Yes, we do all that. But instead of being hunkered down and play, oh, poor me, and find out other people that want to play, oh, poor me with that too, Austin, because misery loves what? Company. And I tried that out on social media where I watched these people print up, you know, post up all this negative stuff. And my cousin, I wrote on his, and I said, Danny, try posting something positive. It's more like you. And some guy, I don't even know who he is, and I've been doing that a lot. Post something positive. It's more like you. And this guy, about 3 paragraphs, lit me up, and at the end called me an effing moron. I don't even know the guy, you know? And I'm going, oh my God, if that doesn't prove the point that misery loves company, and it's so easy to fall victim to all of this. And you look at how it's been played out on the streets of America today, all over the world, that overwhelming pent-up hostility that we have because we've been down and we don't like this, and let me blame it on somebody. And now I get so pissed off, I'm going to go out on the streets and picket and do all that. Great. But the looting and all that, that's coming from all this built up anxiety. And they're spilling that out onto the streets and taking it on. Hell, half of them don't even know what they're doing, right? But misery loves company. And hey, are you going to do that? I'm going to do that. Let's go out and do that, right? My company, both on the corporate side and the AST side, we're all about social justice. We're all about, gay rights and human rights and all that. But we'd rather be stealth and take action and doing things to make a difference instead of going out and painting signs. Sorry, that's just my view. And that's how we approach it. And I think if more people did that, I think we would have so much more accomplished instead of all this that's just being played out on the streets. Okay, enough of that. Go back to your question again, is one of the things that we're doing too in supplying, the concepts of the 7 fundamentals. And I saw that this was so necessary. And the 7 fundamentals can be manipulated and changed around based on what the audience is. For example, if we're doing this for the Boys and Girls Club, then the whole sports thing we kind of take out because we're doing it in the Keystone Club, which is their high school program. But, vision drives performance. Open your eyes, open your mind. If you change the way you think, watch what happens. Self-talk, what you say is what you get. They don't realize that while I'm talking right now and the audience, you are all talking to yourself at about 300 words a minute. 300 words, 300 words a minute. And as I when I stop talking, you ramp that up to 900 words a minute. And so we have to control that self-talk, and the science is there. This isn't stuff that we made up. They'll tell you that, you know, in CBT, they'll tell you that, you know, cognitive psychology will tell you if you just change the belief, you change the behavior. It's not the other way around. It's not change the behavior, then the belief. It's change the belief first, and then you change it. And when you do that, the stronger your subconscious self-image becomes, the broader your comfort zones. The more it gives you more room to move. So broad comfort zones equal, you know, room to move. And when you do that, then we understand that, and we help people understand, and step by step to help our student athletes and our students understand what goal setting is all about and how it works. You've been taught your whole life to set a goal, have goals, right, Austin? Your dad, I know him very well, taught you to set goals. And we all do that. But how do goals really work? What's really going on in the 5 inches between our ears? So understanding how goals, in a very practical way, and why goal setting works, goals bring structure to chaos. Let me repeat that. Goals bring structure to chaos, and they keep you growing, not just going. And then emotional control. We're teaching kids right now, you know, mindfulness. You know, I can be in front of a crowd of people and just watching them online, and you know, like right now, sit back in your chair. Will you, Austin, sit back in your chair for me? Kind of sit back. Now, when I say go, I want you to take a big, deep breath through your nose, and then hold it, and then slowly let it out. Ready, set, go. Okay, now look what you did, and that's what everybody does. Let it out. This is what you did. And I watch people go like this, right? Your lungs aren't up here in your shoulders. They're down in here, right? And that's stress and tension, and I watch kids do that. You've been around sports enough, and you watch the locker room, right, Austin? And the knee is just going, the coach is trying to talk, and the knee is just going like that. And what we do is we have them understand how to breathe right, and using, you know, breathing and mindfulness. And we watch them take a big deep breath, slowly exhale, and you just watch their knee just kind of like this. And now it's what Martin Seligman calls flow. Dr. Martin Seligman calls flow. We also use in the zone, right? But flow. It's like the place goes silent, and did you watch the Last Dance with Michael Jordan? Okay. Mm-hmm. So how many times did we watch him get into flow, right? He just, when somebody pissed him off, challenged him, said smack, you know, talked smack about him, he goes, yeah, I got you. And then boom, he was off and going. Recently, we just brought in a young lady who just graduated from University of Washington, and she was on crew. And she's a 3-time NC2A champion from UW, and she was the coxswain, you know, and she's the coach, right? She's the coach. And their last one that they won in 2019, I've got the video of it, and she sent it to me. She goes, you know, watching crew is not that exciting, but it is. She said, we just worked on belief. We didn't have the talent that everybody else had. They weren't supposed to even be in the finals. They got in the finals. And when they got in the finals, there were 6 teams: Cal, Texas, Stanford, UW, and I can't remember Michigan and Ohio. So with the 500 meters left, they were in 6th place and ended up winning. And I said, there's where you went into flow. They just got into flow. That it just went silent, and they just, boom, they put themselves into it. So understanding that staying cool means controlling focus. You know, teamwork wins. How does that work? And those are the basic 7 fundamentals. And the deal is that we're not even talking about self-esteem and self-confidence yet. We're going to get into that later. That's more advanced stuff that we have. Self-efficacy, one's appraisal of oneself, of what they can cause, bring about, or make happen. And it's job or task specific. It's either in my math class, how efficacious am I in math? in English at home. And then we have the problem is that we get them ready athletically and academically to go to college. But what about life? Do you realize that USC last September, there was 9 deaths? It wasn't from hazing and all that. It was from just kids are out of control. We haven't set them up properly for college. So we get these kids and then we help them transition into college and into life. That's our purpose behind graduating 500,000 kids by 2026. That's our vision. Graduating 500,000 kids through just the simple 7 fundamentals of mental toughness by 2026. And the purpose is providing those 500,000 kids with the life skills, the mental skills to deal with the basic challenges of life.
That's a really admirable goal, and I think you guys will get there. I love the program myself and what you guys do at all levels. It's interesting, right? My school had a Fayetteville State University, shout out to them, FSU. We had a saying. It was res non verba, which is deeds, not words, or as we like to set it, don't talk about it, be about it, right? So when you are sitting there as an athlete, when you are sitting there as a student and you are struggling, don't just talk about your struggles, actually do something about those struggles. And that is where the rubber meets the road and where ASD is really the, impact to this overall, conversation or discussion, right? Can I
just interrupt? And I think that's so true is be that. And, I've brought all my kids up and I say this to all our student athletes, don't be a victim. There's already too many of them. And just what you said, love that saying.
Yeah, no, brilliant, man. I love that input too. That victim mentality. A lot of people, they tend to focus on what they can't control, and then they leave or sweep under the rug those things that they can control. And if they flip that methodology, flip that thought process, and they only focus on what they could control directly in front of them, and allow that is out of their control to not occupy that mind space, that bandwidth, their lives, not only would they be happier, they would be much more effective, right? Absolutely. And that's where, at the end of the day, where the data, the statistics are going to speak for themselves. If you've tried it one way and you've gotten to where you're at, maybe thinking about it from a different perspective, shifting that methodology, and then going about it at a different light may provide different results. The definition of insanity is something that I tend to remove from my thought process. Once again, right. Repeating that wheel, repeating that life cycle. Which is, incredible. You have parents at home, you have players at home, you've got kids, and this is another issue with, sports, structured sports in general, is that, the life cycle drops off as they get older, right? You mentioned the shift between, your top end competitive sports and then the college transition. As kids and parents are getting through the ranks, they get through U15, U16, U17, U18, they kind of just passed off to schools. They're sort of just passed off to, their secondary education or their parents in a lot of cases. And the parents and the coaches at these secondary education, they don't have the tools themselves to be able to focus on the micro, that singular individual. They have to focus on the team, or in the parents' case, they just don't have the tools in general. So the fact that you guys have created a process, and this isn't a process that you have to go to, it's something where you can plug in daily directly from your home, and you can get the tools, the resources, and now be able to find the solutions to your problems when those problems persist. And these are solutions that are going to be permanent because you now have the tools to create the permanent change in your own life.
Yeah, and you should see what we're working on now, Austin. Like you said, once they've gone through our basic course, the 7 fundamentals, now they've been introduced to this way of thinking. And once they've been introduced to that way of thinking, now they're caught on to it, right? We're working on some AI stuff. So imagine this, that you're a player, gone through the curriculum, more advanced concepts that have been introduced to you. And now we're creating that online continuous education piece. We'd like to do our live piece. And, fortunately and unfortunately, we can do it on Zoom or this kind of platform, or live, hopefully soon. But then the ongoing, it's almost like you go through a program and you go, well, now what? And we've created the now what, we're creating the now what, but we've got some AI technology I've been working on for about a year now, where you can go on every day and under how I feel about my skills and ability, my energy, my confidence, self-esteem, whatever it may be, all these different aspects, and you put it in, and then it spits out to you based on your input. It spits out to you a little 2-minute course, 5-minute course to go through, a video to listen to, a video to watch, audio to listen to, or an article to read, and then maybe you can set a goal this week for that area. Now you can do that, go online and do that on our new platform that's coming out, or you sign up with that and it will say, hey, Austin, you get a text message saying, hey, Austin, we haven't heard from you. How are you feeling today? I'm upset. You plug in upset, poof, it sends you a video, an article, or audio to watch, or a little questionnaire to fill out and help you set a goal to help you get over that upset, sadness, depressed, angst feeling that you have. And that's coming out. We should have that probably in the next 4 to 5 months. It's awesome. It's so cool. But nobody.
That sounds awesome. Sounds like the future.
Yeah. Well, and then as either as a teacher or a coach, to know where your class or where your team is at any given moment, it gives you the group. It won't give you specific players, but and we're working on that. But there's a privacy thing that we're dealing with. But it'll give you an overall mood of your team or of your class. That they've got a negative trend going right now, and the reason why they got a negative trend, a lot of them have been putting in that they have low confidence. But low confidence in what? And we can scale that down into, and then we're also measuring and assessing coaches and teachers. Is this a coach? Imagine a 12-year-old asking this question: is this a coach you could play soccer for, football, whatever, for the rest of your high school career, through your high school or college career? And we're getting that feedback. Why? Why not? Giving them several different questions on that. Remember, go back to that study that was done by Georgetown a few years ago. Number one reason why they stay, because it's fun. Number one reason they leave, it's not fun anymore. And it's not just because of the coach. It's also because of parents. So we asked, I was part of a panel on a movie that we showed at another high school up in Seattle. And we had about 1,000 parents in the audience, and it was called Angst, about, generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, and why kids suffer from that. And so I was up there with 2 psychologists and myself. And at the end, we came up and they asked us questions, and they asked the psychologists their questions. And then the question that he asked me was, what, in my experience, what do I believe creates the most anxiety in our students? And I said, well, let me ask the audience, how many of you have a student athlete here at the school? 99% of them raised their hand. I said, keep your hand up, because there's the answer to your question. It's those parents. And they all knew it. They all laughed. They all laughed to watch parents on the sidelines and things. So, we look at those things and we're assessing those things, and then we're measuring those. And those are things that are to come. So that's we're changing a lot of things. We're improving. You're going to see a brand new website come out here probably in about another 30 days at astacademy.com. You're going to see a lot of new stuff come out on that. We're going to be providing a lot of, I say free, I don't like saying free, but we're going to provide some resources like, what can you do right now, with your kids at home? Model calm, be the model. Watch the amount of news that you're taking in. Focus on what's working, create soothing places. I mean, all these kind of things that we can be doing now, and watching our self-talk at home. And that's another thing that will help ease some of the stuff that's going on for these kids at home today.
I love that. Actionable step for parents, actionable step for players, actionable step for clubs themselves. And honestly, we could have a full-on conversation about the impact player, coach, on referees. We can have an entire conversation about coach, parents, on officials. I mean, honestly, every layer that you are talking about are severe pain points that, me in my seat, obviously I've got a outside looking in approach, but I do have almost 30 years of experience in the presidio at different layers. But you see it, and you see the value that a little shift in mentality could have and create the grassroots change that's necessary, not just for this generation, but for future generations. A little bit of a culture shift, a little bit of a mental shift, and now all of a sudden, the ship can be rewrited in a lot of different ways that will lead to the next generation's successes, as opposed to the current path of failure that we're talking about.
Right. If I can leave you with this and leave your audience with this, if what we can do as adults is build a hopeful vision of the future instead of oh my God, this is happening. That alone, if you focused on that alone in your house, catch yourself talk, write that down. I build a hopeful vision of the future daily. The difference in that, Austin, will make a huge impact on your family and your kids and other people. What you'll start to do, you'll start to hear differently. You'll start to hear things differently. You'll hear people talking about, ain't it awful? And all of a sudden that will change over time. But you've got to be able to build that hopeful vision of the future.
Brilliant. Brilliant, Jim. Fantastic chatting with you. I'm going to link where my audience or the viewers here can find you in the show notes below. I look forward to much more positive things coming from the AST side, and I can't wait to check out this new AST Academy website coming out soon. Thanks for your time today, Jim.
Austin, keep it up. You're creating a hopeful vision of the future. Thank you very much for having me, Austin. Thank you very much. Tell everybody in San Diego hi for me, will you?
Right back at you. Cheers. All right, everybody. That was Jim Madrid. Fantastic chat. Expert interview for this afternoon, all about the mental and emotional side. What you can do as a parent, as a player, as a club, as an administrator, as an official, at home during this COVID-19 pandemic in order to improve your mental state and control your situation. This is Austin Turner with Two Footed Solutions. On behalf of here, the Unheard Digital Summit, I'm signing out.